if you've made it into your fantasy football championships, there's still some like navigating to do. There's still like a few players that will probably, I guess we can call them sleepers, that were just unlikely guys. Nobody's a sleeper in fantasy football, but I think I've asked you this a couple times already, Chris Liss. Are you in any like traditional non-NFFC, like big tournament leagues where you're in the finals this year, or have you just narrowed down?
Just the stake league. And I've had a couple decent weeks. I think a lot of the guys around me have had really bad weeks. So I'm at worst, I think, a self buyer. It looks like, I mean, unless I had a total collapse the last 2 weeks, it goes through week 18. But it's looking like I'm either an eater or a self buyer. So that's fine. That's my only league. I'm out of the playoffs. I'm not going to win, but no one cares about winning that league. It's like $200. It's all about avoiding the dreaded buyer status and double buyer status.
Yeah, the league that Chris Liss is talking about is a league where there is more punishment for doing bad than there is upside for doing good. So that's a whole different thing where you're even.
It's like life. It's just like life,
Very good, very good. But let's just spend a little time in the beginning of the podcast before we really flesh out like what's going on in sports and maybe some extra social commentary issues at the end. But people that clicked on the video for the title of sleepers, let's just give them a couple players that, and I'll kind of spoon feed you here, and you can give me your feedback. So if you have TJ Hawkinson, he's out for the year. This is this is bad because next year too, we were talking about how we might have had him as a top 3, top 4 tight end, maybe even tight end 1 next year. He's not going to be back before November at the earliest, I would think. So, all right, you lost TJ Hawkinson. Are there any like waiver wirey types or fill-in types that you could put in your championship and at least feel decent about it?
Yeah, I didn't really look. I know you sent that to me yesterday, but I'm sort of like, like another like a homework guy anymore. I'm 52. Right. And then I was also like, I was going to say, you suggest him and I'll tell you if I agree. And I'm going to tell like the Iowa show I still do. I'm going to say I'm not doing it next year. The thing is, I am very selfish. Like, so when I do in draft season, I know everybody because I got to know everybody because I'm drafting. But as we narrow down, all I know is which 2 guys on my team I'm going to choose between. Like, that's all I know. So I'm not like up on like what's going on. Who are the Vikings using now that Hawkinson's out? I have no idea who they're using. Right. I know Irv Smith is not in Minnesota anymore. So
no, it would be Josh Oliver. But I figured this is how it was going to go. So I've already prepared this, just so you know. That's how I know you, Chris.
Good. You're like 11. You're playing the 11D chess, asking me and then knowing how it's going to go.
Exactly. Good. But I thought maybe on the odd chance there was.
I'll give you my opinion on your guys that you like. Who do you like?
Okay, so I'm in this exact situation. So this, no wonder. If I need a sleeper tight end, what do you think about Tucker Kraft, the Green Bay Packers, the second rookie they drafted, who's been okay this year? I mean, is he more of a touchdown or bust guy, or do you like what you've seen from this guy when you've observed him on Sunday Ticket?
I don't know. Is Musgrove hurt or something? What's the deal?
Yeah, he's on IR still.
Okay, so he's the starting tight end for Green Bay. Christian Watson's iffy.
He's had 6 targets in 3 of the last 4 weeks.
Right.
They're playing Minnesota at Minnesota.
I mean, sure, right? I mean, if he's got 6 targets, that's probably what you want, right? If you're looking for a tight end, 6 targets, hopefully one's in the end zone, and you take your chances. I mean, obviously none of the Taysom Hill and Njoku, any of those guys. I mean, Njoku's definitely gone, but like any of the, after the top, Freiermuth, I like him, guys like that.
He's not going to be available. Here, I'm going to give you a list of guys, and then you kind of parse it out how you want. Like Tyler Conklin in Thursday Night Football against the Cleveland.
I was desperate how to use Tyler Conklin in a league. Is Waller available? He's banged up.
No, he's been picked up just on name brand. But hey, I want to just give you a Tyler Conklin thing. Ready? I'm going to read his targets from week 13 on 9, 6, 7, 7.
That's something. I mean, that's what I do in like basketball when I do free agents. I sort by minutes, or you sort by targets. You like sort by targets. Oh, this guy got the most targets. All right, fine. That's the guy I'm using. Or if you do want to do it over 2-3 weeks to sort of see a trend and then make sure nothing's changed. Make sure Musgrove's not coming back from IR or something this week. If he's not, then that's the guy, Conklin or Musgrove. But I mean, I have no basis to choose between them except maybe opponent. And then I go to the RotoWire page where it's sort by opponents. Yeah. Sometimes I'll look at that page. You know that page I'm talking about?
Of course.
And then I just sort tight ends, and like if it's like 10 and 20, that means nothing. But if it's like 31st and 2nd, then that'll tie break my decision.
And by the way, there is interest in this topic. Over 100 people poured into the YouTube live right now just to hear this. So we'll give them a little bit of this before we pivot off. Okay, how about wide receiver wise? So Hawkinson's out. Jordan Addison might be out for the Vikings. KJ Osborne, have you seen something from him? Is he startable in a championship? Like, let's say you have Amari Cooper going and he's not playing tonight, right? He's questionable. He's hopeful to play. You lost him. Is KJ Osborne a sleeper, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, he had a big game last week, and after Jefferson, yeah, of course you can use Osborne if he's the number 2 and Addison's out. I think that's an easy one.
All right, so then I guess not.
Cooper. I mean, that nobody does anything against the Jets. No wide receivers score against the Jets. Cooper's. I mean, you're not going to sit Cooper after he had 260 something yards, but I mean, I think Cooper could get if he plays, get like 3 for 17 or something like that this week.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe Flacco, by the way, when you talk about against the Jets here, Flacco has been averaging over 44 pass attempts a game, over 2 touchdowns a game, over 300 yards a game for a month. But all these elite quarterbacks like Justin Herbert have had their worst games against him. Would you start Flacco tonight?
Probably not against the Browns. I mean, I wouldn't.
The Jets.
Oh, sorry. I mean, he's playing right. I forgot he's on again. No, the Jets are the worst team for quarterbacks because they don't score and they take away the passing game. In fact, I think the running backs are more interesting for the Browns than the quarterback. The other thing is quarterbacks just don't matter. Right? You have Patrick Mahomes, he's total garbage. But if you have Joe Flacco, you're set. Right? If you have Nick Mullins, you're set. But if you have, it's so interesting that QBs, where everyone's like, oh, well, how could you draft a running back in the first round? In the real NFL. And then this year, there's so many good QBs who've just completely taken. I mean, Deshaun Watson. I mean, he got that contract and they get Joe Flacco out of retirement at 40 years old and he's better than Deshaun Watson. It's very strange.
So I guess that means coaching and environment matters. Is that the big takeaway, right?
Well, the big takeaway is nothing matters, right? Quarterbacks don't matter. Running backs don't matter. Nothing matters. So what does that mean? It means everything matters in context. Everything matters circumstantially in context. These idiots who try to get clout by simplifying a slogan like running backs don't matter are just stupid. They're midwits. They thought that was clever, but the reality is, does Christian McCaffrey matter to the Niners? Has he made them a better offense? Of course he does. Sometimes the running back doesn't matter at all. We're finding out that quarterbacks aren't mattering in a lot of cases. I mean, Joe Flacco coming in and the Browns being better is truly strange. And this is not the only situation. Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew are the same guy right now. I mean, this is a weird thing, but obviously quarterbacks will matter in more circumstances than running backs. But the idea that you could make this kind of claim in these complex systems is just insane. And now I'm glad that this is happening because it's just showing sometimes the situation is the key. Yeah.
All right. So from week 10 forward, so that's a pretty good football sample size. Patrick Mahomes is quarterback what in ranking?
Week 10 forward. Oh, in fantasy?
Yeah.
I'll say he's quarterback 9.
14.
Okay, 14. So even worse.
Yep.
I just thought from playing every game, half the league is out. So you think that 14 is bad. It's 14 out of 20, right? Out of the guys who have played every game. Yep. It's really bad. If you count all the guys that have been hurt.
You would have been better off starting Baker Mayfield over that period of time.
Yeah, quarterbacks don't matter. And the other thing is that if you were to say the average output by the quarterback of the team, the Chiefs are probably not 14th. They're probably 17th. Because, again, there's guys who were pretty good and missed a couple games. Look at the Vikings, right? They're probably close to the Chiefs' output, although Dobbs had that game against the Raiders. But if you were to, he's only 14th because some guys split, because some quarterbacks split the games.
Yep. All right. So we're talking about sleepers, meaning unlikely players that you could start in your fantasy championship. I'm mixing that in with news a little bit. Right. Let's talk about the Russell Wilson situation, right? Yep. So just to anyone that knows, Russell Wilson, basically a couple weeks ago, they tried to renegotiate his contract because if he does not pass a physical this March, meaning if he's hurt the rest of this year, his money's guaranteed for 2025. Not 24, right. 25. So they went to him a couple weeks ago and said, waive that clause or you're sitting down. We don't want to be on the hook for you in 25. Of course he says no. I would say no as well.
Right. Hell no.
Yep. $37 million is, I don't care how rich you are. That's real money.
And why would he do them a favor? Why would he, if he negotiated that?
If he wants to play.
Yeah. But it's sort of That's fine. I mean, they're within their rights to start whoever they want, but it's one of those moral hazard contracts. That's like you sign this contract and just realize they're going to have an incentive to sit you at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's surprised that. So then news comes out that Jarrett Stidham's starting. Jarrett Stidham was the second player signed in free agency after Sam Darnold. It sounds like Sean Payton may have wanted to play him all along, Liss.
I don't know. I mean, obviously they made such a commitment to Wilson that, although they did that before last year, so that wasn't a Sean Payton issue, that they knew Wilson was going to be the QB for this year or next. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's fine, right? Russell Wilson's getting paid to sit. In other words, you're getting paid that much money, and they want to sit you, then you just sit and, have a good attitude about it. And the team making that commitment has to have a good attitude about him not waiving something that they negotiated for. And we'll see. It can't really be. Wilson wasn't horrendous this year. He was okay. But
no, he was actually good for fantasy. Like, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback. So,
right. But that's only because of the injuries. I mean, being like the 12th best or 10th best quarterback. If you look at average, you count some of the guys who got hurt.
Russ is QB9.
Right, but Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, if Minshew Richardson together was way ahead of Russ. Cousins obviously is ahead of Russ on average.
Right, but so, Russ
Stroud, right?
Well, if you drafted Russ Wilson and you played him, that's not the reason you lost.
It is if you played him every week. Because again, Stroud, the Colts, the Vikings, he's probably like the 15th best QB, on average for like, if you were to average the teams, again, not just Russell Wilson. And he didn't do much, but he's okay. It's just that he's getting paid and they traded so much for him that is a huge bust, right? It's just the amount of salary cap he takes up, all of that. So, whatever, the Bros weren't like a feared passing game. There was like, I only started Jerry Jeudy when I had to, and I screwed up. I'd have 10 points more in my prime time, which would have been useful. And I started Godwin over him. It was just that it was the Thursday night game and it was the Saturday night game, and Godwin was questionable. I didn't have any other receivers because Quentin Johnson played Thursday night. And, I was like, do I risk the 0 with Godwin? So I started Jeudy. He got me 10 points, which for him was actually good. And then Godwin got 20 the next day or 25 or something. And that really hurts because I'm in it. I'm in the overall prime time, by the way.
What place are you in?
I'm in like 61st, but I'm 20 points out of like 25th, which pays 26th.
And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, these contests that Liss is talking about, the NFFC runs, they're like DFS contests. So 20 points is close, but yet it's so far away, right?
But I've got Lamb and Dak against the Lions. I mean, if those guys go 40 each, say, right, I got 80 right there, and I get that 200-point week. I mean, I'm in it. It may be a 2% chance, but like
it's striking distance.
If I have a crazy week, like a 230-point week, which happens 1% of the time, right? Like there's going to be some other people at that stack, but not that many. And, I'm in it. And so, that 10, 15 points that I lost because I started Jerry Jeudy's carcass over Godwin. And I should have just not been a nutless monkey because I should have just been like, look, it's the overall, just don't worry about downside, worry about upside. But it's not like, but the reason I switched it was, it's not like Godwin was doing anything before that week either. He was getting like 5 for 50, with no touchdown. So I made the switch to Jeudy with a good matchup and he got 10 points, but Godwin got his best game of the season on my bench, which was unfortunate.
All right, so Courtland Sutton, I'm presuming he's going to be out. You have Jarrett Stidham there, so they're going to be with Marvin Mims and the rest of the crew there, Brandon Johnson. So if you're like say in a super flex league, because this doesn't really apply to a single quarterback, you're in your fantasy final. You have to look. You're looking at like, okay, I lost whatever quarterback I have. Mason Rudolph or Jarrett Stidham. Which one of those guys do you think is a better sleeper, and would you be more confident starting in a 2 QB league?
Yeah, Rudolph, I just feel like I would never use.
It was good last week.
I
got me to my final last week.
I know. I took the Bengals with the spread. I had a disastrous week against the spread. That was such a flip game where the Bengals, like with Jake Browning, were way better than they were supposed to be, and the Steelers had lost a bunch. And the line wasn't big enough, so I should have taken the Steelers. It made no sense, but it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd probably go Stidham, but I'm sort of like the lineup advice is not my thing anymore because
this is not lineup advice. This is just parsing out football decisions that, again, we're going to be talking about the greater football, and we're weaving in football situations. I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to give you a forced start sit here, but
yeah, like who are the Steelers playing again? Like who I did the lines, but I'm not even off the top of my head remembering who they're playing. Okay. Like I just care about my selfish, and I have these opinions that are more like, playoff oriented, like who's going to go
at Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, that's not great. And then, and who's Stidham playing? Who's Denver playing?
The LA Chargers.
Yeah, so that's better, right? That's a better situation for him. I would definitely go Stidham. And, the receivers, I say never Judy. And I shouldn't have violated that, but Judy's in play. Marvin, those guys are all in play. The problem is you don't know really which one it will be, but they're all viable with that matchup.
All right, so I won't present these situations as in which one would you start, because I could see that triggers you. But I will not.
You can ask me. I'm just saying, like, I literally would be telling people, like, wait, what team are they playing? Which cornerback is out? Like, I don't know. And so this happens on the Iowa show. They ask me, and I'll be like, wait a second, who is the timeshare guy who got more carries last week? Like, if you don't know the answer to that, you really shouldn't be telling people who to start. And
it's 50-50 anyway. Who cares? Red or black,
but no, it might not be. It might be that, like, actually the guy that I'm recommending only got 30% of the share last week, and I'm not aware of that because I don't care, because he's not on my team. Like, again, before the season, I study everything because I need to know everything for my draft, and weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm still up on it. But by week 17, I'm just like, I know who's on my team, and I research their situations.
Well, maybe what we should do is make a parody start sit channel. So, like, we pretend we know what we're talking about, and we just give out advice. And if you follow,
that's what like Stephen A. Smith does. That's like ESPN, right? Like, they're just on. They're like, oh man, and then they'll call him out, and they'll be like, wait, that's not even. He changed teams or whatever. Like, didn't he do something crazy a few years back? I like Stephen A. Smith, but like where he like said something about something, and it was like so outdated what he was saying. Like, he clearly had just not even paid attention, but he was so used to just getting on the radio, saying what, answering questions about sports, and didn't even need to do his research because he was, knowledgeable enough. Mm-hmm. But I feel guilty. I actually personally don't like it to bullshit people. I like to be like, well, I just don't know, because, and people ask me, my friend's son is into fantasy, and he texts me all the time. And I said, look, I don't know. I'm not up on it. You're up on it. It's your team. You're in the finals. Like, you make your decision.
Yeah, no, I get, it's so funny. I get a lot of the questions, and I bite back a little sometimes. I'm talking about like with non-social media, just like my friends. Right. I was like, well, who would you start?
Right.
Why? If it was or I start a lot of those return sentences. If this was my team, this is how I do it. But I understand if you do it the other way. I let that.
Well, I'm also like, I don't need your problems. I got my own problems. It's like if I start somebody, and this is my biggest problem. It's like if I sit somebody, I'll root against that guy. Even though I should be rooting for him to like do well and get bigger share to like for future weeks, I'll be like, I just don't want to like suffer with what I should have done, and it's wrong. So I'll root against it. And so, like, now that's my own struggle I'm going to have on Sunday. So now I know that I gave advice to somebody who's in the finals. It matters to them. And now my advice is going bad. So now I'm rooting for my advice to be right, so that he's not like, dude, why'd you tell me this? I don't need that problem. I have enough problems. I don't need your problem too. Deal with your own problem. That's what when people ask me advice, like, it's your fucking problem,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you've done countless podcasts on, what's the philosopher about itching the Peirce, Charles Peirce, is that his name?
Well, that's the belief. Yeah, it's fixation of belief. Yeah,
well, which is kind of the same thing, right? You're itching you're making the decision for them.
Right. They want so there's so
explain Charles it quickly.
Charles Peirce, 19th century philosopher, he wrote a short piece called The Fixation of Belief. And the premise was doubt, not I doubt this, but like a sense of uncertainty or doubt is like
a physical question.
That's an example of a doubt. Who do I start? I don't know what to do. This is a discomfort. It's like an irritation, like an itch that needs to be scratched, or a pain that needs, some sort of salve. And, and in place of that, what people do is they adopt a belief. So they're like, oh, the RotoWire guy told me that this running back is the correct answer. So now the game hasn't happened. It's still 48 hours before the game starts. But now that doubt is gone. You're like, I know who to start. I'm not worried about this anymore. That irritation, that anxiety I have is gone. Now, it may turn out to be wrong, and you'll find out later. But you're not, between like Friday and Sunday morning, you don't have any problems in the whole world. Your world is peaceful. You have no anxiety. So what people really want is they want that doubt assuaged. And so they're paying you, or not even paying you, but just taking your attention and time for no money to do this for them. And that's why these guys sometimes have giant followings on Twitter, because they're doubt assuagers, the professional doubt assuagers, and a lot of sites are that. But the reality is, like, that doubt, that pain, the best way out is Robert Frost. The best way out is always through. And you got to just deal with the discomfort and make a decision. And having someone do it for you may allay that feeling for a minute, but it does. If it's not right, you don't want that. You want to suffer the pain of doubt. That's the antidote to all that. The key to life is to enjoy the unscratched itch. Just enjoy the itch. You don't need a scratch.
I could go a lot of places with that, but
no, not in your perverse mind. I mean, literally.
Oh yeah,
that itch. Or the unsatisfied, whatever. That is if you can master that, you've mastered yourself, and you're the most powerful person in the world. If you literally can have a horrible itch, right, and you can just sit there and be like, that's a feeling of itching. That's a really strong feeling of itching, and I'm just going to enjoy this feeling. I'm not going to do anything about it, and I have the power to when these discomforts or doubts or itches arise, I don't need to do anything about it. I can just be with it. You are the most powerful person in the world if you can do that.
When with my ex-wife, she used to force me to meditate, and she would say,
"You have an ex-wife, dude?"
I do.
I don't know anything about you, man. Holy shit, you have an ex-wife?
I have an ex-wife. We're still friends to this day.
Two women agreed to marry you. That's shocking.
One thought better of it.
Right. But I'm just crazy.
Yeah. But she used to, strongly encourage meditation, and same thing. Like, hey, if you hear a honking horn, we were doing it in New York City where there's a lot of noise. You hear a honking horn, ignore. Like, don't open your eyes and look. If you have like a back crack, don't do it. Don't be. So it takes time. So the same philosophy there. Yeah. Offline, I'll give you some ex-wife details.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But very nice person. Very nice.
Okay.
It was my fault.
Good.
It was definitely my fault.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I take full accountability as you like.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy. Okay. That's a horrible game. 4 interceptions. 2 of them I don't think were his fault, but Sam Darnold comes in. I think if Sam Darnold would have come in and come back there, we would have like a true quarterback controversy. Is there any reason that you can think of that the 49ers would maybe in the offseason think about replacing Brock Purdy? Upgrading. There's going to be a few upgrade options. Russell Wilson might be. Kirk Cousins.
No chance. Cousins would be, but no way Russell Wilson. Here's the thing. Brock Purdy was the favorite for MVP a few days ago. And I watched him throw the ball. It wasn't too bad, right? Like he looked like he made a couple good throws. He did make a couple of mistakes against good defense. I don't think there's any reason for panic or alarm with Purdy. But as we know, quarterbacks don't matter. So you could probably get a nutless monkey in there in that situation and be pretty good. Obviously, Purdy's over the threshold of terrible. And Darnold may be, actually, if he were in that situation. We don't know because the sample's way too small.
Well, we've seen Darnold in other situations. Oh, you're talking about in that environment?
That environment, like how, there's some situations that are so bad that maybe Aaron Rodgers will get destroyed next year with the Jets, and it won't matter that it's Aaron Rodgers. We don't know, but we know with the Niners, it's, you don't have to be very good, we don't think, to be really good in that system. I mean, So basically, I think there's nothing to worry about with Purdy if you're the Niners right now, just from that one game. But the playoffs will really tell the tale, right? I mean, if he throws 4 interceptions against, Dallas, he destroyed in the regular season, who has a good defense. But if it happens in the playoffs, and maybe they'll make a switch. But I just don't think you would do anything based on the information from that one game.
And also, let's keep in mind, if you're thinking about like Dynasty Keeper or just even like real football, there's nothing more valuable in football than having a good quarterback, a functional quarterback on a rookie contract. If you're going to pay up $35 million for Russell Wilson, or even $24 million for like, a Minshew type, and just say, oh, Purdy, you move over to the side, that makes no sense, because now other pieces of your team will suffer. So you have a guy that was a 7th round pick making what? Like, I think at one point he's making like $780,000. Like, it wasn't even over $1 million. It's like, next year it'll probably be, and they'll probably restructure him after 24 or give him an extension if it works out. But that's another piece of this too.
Yeah, this is why, like, this, again, those dumbass running backs don't matter. People, like, certain situations are different, right? Like in San Francisco, as currently constituted with the offensive line and the weapons, you need a certain level, and that's it. And so don't spend the money on that, right? If you get the Kirk Cousins, then you're going to have to let other pieces go, and it's just a different team. Other situations, the quarterback, if you have a Mahomes, but even he seems insufficient right now. That's what you build around, and they shouldn't let Tyreek Hill go. It turns out, they did win a Super Bowl, but
that's true. That's true. $870,000 for Purdy this year. Next year, $985,000 salary.
I mean, that's
in 25, $1.1 million. He was a 7th round pick.
It's kind of sad because they have every incentive to just run that out.
They will,
and then unless he's like so good, like he just proves he's Tom Brady somehow or whatever, just be like, yeah, sorry, we're going to sign whoever the Kirk Cousins of that year is, to the Stafford Cousins, whoever's available a couple years later, and just say thanks for your service. And he got paid $4 million. Now he'll probably get, if they win a Super Bowl or two, the Minshew money at least from somewhere else after that. But, my model's always been like, everyone's like, oh, you got to draft that Trevor Lawrence or that Zach Wilson or whoever the first or second overall pick is on QB. But you don't, right? You really don't. It's not necessarily the way to win. And the Niners have been very sharp. I think Shanahan has a huge part in that. Like, to have a coach with that kind of offensive system makes a huge difference. But
look at Jimmy G in the two different systems in Raiders and, beginning of the year and when he was with San Fran.
I think, it's really interesting. I think, I don't know if it'll change, but in like 10, 15 years, we may be talking about, oh no, you don't pay the quarterback. There's like 2 quarterbacks worth the max. It's like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And then everybody else, you try to pay the offensive tackle. You pay for like an elite hybrid running back, an elite outside wideout who can stretch the field, an elite tight end who can block, and this is how you do it. And that was a mistake. That whole like overly relying on QBs, that era where they just paid the QB whatever, where there's Daniel Jones or Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson at that stage of his career, was a total mistake.
And talk about good deals. Do you know how much Baker Mayfield's contract was for? Let's just take a guess without thinking about it.
10 mil.
8.
All right. Good deal.
8. Right. So next year, I mean, you could say, what would you rather have next year? Baker Mayfield for $25 million, because let's say he garners 25 to 28, or you have to extend Trevor Lawrence to the $40 million per. And Baker Mayfield, you could do the 2-year deal too. You could do
I would take Mayfield. I would take Mayfield. I mean, Lawrence still has more upside, obviously, but Mayfield played at a high level in Cleveland 1 year too. He's playing well now. I wrote this in my Real Man Sports blog, basically that that Baker Mayfield was Jared Goff after a couple good games. Jared Goff, people don't remember. Now, the Lions fan who responds a lot was aghast at that comparison, but probably not anymore. Jared Goff was left for dead after the Stafford trade. It was like, this was like a negative that the Lions took on in the trade for the Rams to land Stafford. And now Jared Goff is a pretty good quarterback. Mayfield is a pretty good quarterback, but Mayfield before the season was like left for dead. So people can't remember now that these guys are good, like how left for dead they really were. I mean, Goff was literally left for dead after the Rams got rid of him.
They had to take on the Rams, gave the Lions a pick to take him.
Yeah, for the salary. And Mayfield, was an $8 million quarterback. He was left for dead. And all these guys like Minshew, Mayfield, Goff, they're all just guys, but they're over the level. They're NFL quarterbacks. They're real NFL quarterbacks. They're not the Sam Darnold who may be one day, or Zach Wilson or Tommy DeVito, who are just kind of not quite NFL quarterbacks. They're backups at best, And so, when a guy's an NFL quarterback, put him in a decent situation and he's going to look like, a borderline Pro Bowler. But there's literally like a handful of quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes that are, they're worth the money that you pay them. I think Jalen Hurts might just be a guy, by the way.
But there's other things with Jalen Hurts that I think is excusable to pay him the elite tier. One, I mean, the guy squats 600 pounds and it shows up on the field with the tush push, right? I mean, that's the reason.
It's a big advantage. It's a
big advantage. The guy seems like he has command of the locker room. He's always been a winner, going back to like college.
Well, when they're winning, it looks like that. But let's see if they get bounced and they're start off 3-4 next year, what goes on. I mean, sure. I guess that it hasn't happened is a point in his favor, but
just think about, remember going back to his college days, in the championship game, he was replaced with Tua. What does the guy do? Transfers out and then brings another program to a winning thing. Like I'm saying, like those things are character things in real football that you do want. I know, like, of course you want like the maniac linebacker or I like a diva wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? Right. I like a Keyshawn, but with a quarterback, you do want someone that's resilient when things go bad.
But I mean, look at Mayfield, look at Goff. I mean, these guys were left for dead and now they're leading teams, possibly the playoffs. Certainly the Lions are in the playoffs, maybe the Bucks. I mean,
no one thinks those guys have upside in the playoffs. Maybe
they don't have upside, but they're resilient. I mean, they're resilient as hell. I mean, those guys believe in themselves. Mayfield and Goff could have been like, all right, I had my 3-year run. I'll just go be a backup now and take some easy money. But no, those guys are like, they want to win a Super Bowl. And, Hurts maybe one of those guys, they're resilient, but is Hurts in the other tier with, Mahomes and Josh Allen and maybe Lamar Jackson. I'm sort of getting more sold on Lamar Jackson just because it's every year the Ravens are good. And he lost. The other thing about Lamar Jackson for MVP is he lost his best receiver by far. He lost Mark Andrews. Like all the other guys you're talking about have basically had their weapons intact. And that's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, Lamar's had the year he's had without Andrews.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, it's just so funny that he went the last pick of the first round when it wasn't like, oh, we just found this guy in the third round. Like it was known that Lamar had this type of upside. And the easy joke here is that the Ravens had 2 picks in that round and they took Hayden Hurst first.
Right.
They didn't even know.
Right. Nobody knows. I mean, the Patriots, they got Tom Brady. Did they take him in the 2nd round? No, they took him in the 6th round. They didn't know.
Yeah. Right. Lamar was a guy that was considered falling. No one thought, I'm just saying
he's a prospect. He was people. And I was like, I wouldn't pay Lamar. I think I wrote this. I may not have written it, but I was thinking it because the running quarterback's a young man's game. He's been around since 2018, right? And we're in 2023, end of 2023. This is a young man's game. And if he loses that, where does he rank him on the QBs just to have the defense have to deal with that? Well, he hasn't really lost that. He's still, he's gotten injured a little bit, but he hasn't gotten injured more than his regular share of a drop back passer. And so, he's held up. Now, if they win a Super Bowl this year, then whatever you paid him is always worth it. Right. If they get bounced and get upset early in the playoffs, which they might, and then he gets hurt next year, then you'll say, okay, that was stupid. You see, he's too injury prone as a running quarterback.
But Lamar got hurt last year in the pocket, not as a runner. So that's the great irony of the whole thing.
Well, look at all the guys who've gotten hurt this year who are pocket passers. Kirk Cousins is a pocket passer. Aaron Rodgers is a pocket passer. So anyone can get hurt. But, McNair's career, I think, was sort of the RG3. Template. RG3 just got hurt after the end of his rookie year and never was the same. But McNair was great, and because he had this running aspect and he was a good thrower. But then when he lost the running, he just didn't. Well, Cam was still running in New England. It was just that he was a marginal passer that I think he had shoulder problems or something. And then once he lost that, he was below the margin. He was below he turned into Tebow basically.
He was out of the league at age 30 when most quarterbacks this time that are, let's say, above that level, even the Andy Dalton level, are playing to 35 years old. I mean, Andy Dalton's that old. He made some starts. So,
well, Flacco, look at Flacco. But the thing is, Flacco came in the league 3 years before Newton. But Newton, I thought he had a shoulder injury. I think was just part of it.
Yep. I want to go back to Russell Wilson for a second. Okay, so the team has already said they're going to cut him next year. And again, this could just be reporting. It may not be true. The offseason, everything get repaired. But if Russell Wilson is truly free to sign with any team, which team do you think is the best fit, taking into account that he's going to want his $35 million, right? So, I mean,
no one's going to pay him $35 million. Nobody.
All right. What if it's 28? Doesn't, whatever it is. He's going to be in
24.
There'll be a team that's a little bit more desperate than that, because there's going to be teams that don't get the rookie quarterbacks. There's 3 or 4 of them that are left with the Taylor Heineke.
I'll definitely do a bet under 30.
So you want to go, okay, so if he makes $30 million and $1 in 2024 or whatever from his new team,
$20.
We'll do fine, $20 average salary.
Right.
But you said 24, I said 28. So
okay,
now
fine. 26. I'll go under 26.
Well, I'll give you 28 because that's what I said. It was 28.
Fine. Under 28.
So, right. If it's 27 and any change, you win.
Right. Done.
Okay. Right. Average annual salary.
Right.
Right. That helps you. I mean, actually, it probably helps me, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Fine. $20. By the way, I think I couldn't find the Ramondre bet anywhere. And I think it might have been total touchdowns. And the reason I think that is I remember feeling like, oh yeah, I think Ramondre will have more rushing touchdowns. You're like, we'll do total touchdowns. And I was like, okay, if you want to do that, fine. Right. Which was dumb of you, but it actually helped you because Zeke's gotten a couple of receiving and we're tied then. And Ramondre's done. He's on AR now. So
I'll win it this week. I'll win it this week.
You may. But the point is, if it was rushing touchdowns, I would have won. Probably, but not.
So
definitely.
We can wipe the bet off the board if you want.
No. I'll pay you. I think now that I couldn't find the rushing one, I started thinking maybe you were being generous by letting it be total,
as I usually am.
And then it actually redounded to your benefit because that's going to win it for you. So
see, karma, generosity, karma came back for me.
Oh yeah.
So Russell Wilson, you didn't name a team. What do you think would be a team, a couple of the usual suspects that would actually look into him and that this would represent an upgrade?
I mean, I can't really, let me just think off the top of my head. I mean, the Raiders are always like getting the recycled products.
No Atlanta. That's the obvious one, right?
I guess Atlanta. I mean, the thing is like Wilson, he's old, right? He's not going to be, unless he goes cheap, like 12 million.
No, that ain't happening. That ain't happening.
Why can't he be a Mayfield? Because he had a decent year this year. That's the issue.
Yeah. He has not been as kicked around as Mayfield. His perception isn't elite, but all he has to do is show there's going to be a team desperate enough. And also he does bring a name brand equity. His name brand is still good. Whereas Baker Mayfield's name brand, like you just said, was like in the mud. It was almost hey, we're giving you a chance to compete with Kyle Trask last year.
Right. No, I get it. But Russell was terrible last year. He was just merely adequate this year. And, and so
Steelers?
And he's got a bad rep, like in terms of like locker room clubhouse, the things you're saying about Hurts, they say the opposite about Russell.
Right.
So like you're a rebuilding team because obviously you're not signing. If you're a good team, you probably have a quarterback, right?
Well, so how about the Vikings? The Vikings are a good team, and Kirk Cousins is an Achilles 36-year-old that won't be ready till
but they're not going to pay him $28 million and then have Cousins come.
No, just goodbye Cousins because they're not. He's an unrestricted free agent Cousins.
Right, but Cousins could be back for week 1, don't you think?
No, Achilles.
Rodgers was trying to play this year,
but he didn't.
Right, but I mean, it was like it was in the. I think Cousins will be back for the start of next year.
These guys
he's not a mobile guy. He's not a mobile guy.
All right, so
Cousins didn't take the shot either. By the way, you know that, right?
That's interesting.
So you never know what he's doing. But the point is that I think Cousins with Jefferson in his prime and Addison coming along, Hawkinson hurts that he's going to be without him. But with those two receivers indoors, I just feel like that's like it's not going to get better than that for Cousins.
Okay. So the other one is, and this one I'm borrowing or I'm taking from a friend of mine, Cody Carpentier. He said the Seahawks have an out on Geno.
I think I don't.
Can you imagine that?
That would be interesting to get all those picks and then get him back anyway. It's kind of like Dave Portnoy buying back his company. Right. But maybe, I think that's not a.
He knows the offense.
Well, but like there was a lot of sourness around that.
Divorced couples get back together all the time.
Not all the time. I wouldn't say all the time.
It happens. It happens.
Right. Okay. Well, don't tell your wife that you and your ex. You're talking about your ex. You're talking about how divorced couples get back together.
Yeah, I know. Well, I again, even if I wanted to, I don't think that door is open for me. Sometimes, you level the building and
that corpse that she found in the closet was the end of the line for you, huh?
I think that would have been like still reconcilable. We go with the whole. I'll lay down on the couch here and tell you, Dr. Liss, what happened. Yeah. All right, so we covered a couple of the quarterback. Sam Howell gets benched. Why are they benching Sam Howell when they're out of the playoffs for Jacoby Brissett? What's the purpose of this?
I saw a tweet on this by Pianowski, and I totally agreed with it. That basically like everybody else on the team exists. It's not just the quarterback, right? So like. If Brissett plays well, Howell plays terrible, and you've got receivers and linemen, everybody doing their jobs. If you're just like, we're going to go with the guy playing terrible and have no accountability for that, it's bad for the culture, And I think that's just true. And it's not like Howell's some prospect that they need to develop, that they spent all this capital on.
Yeah, day 3 pick.
He's had enough sample that, he's probably at best a Minshew, and that's at best. And I think at worst, just a garden variety backup that you bring in. So I think it's the right call.
You hit it right on the head with Minshew. I said that Howell is, because he's a day 3 pick and he's basically a YOLO Tyler Heineke Minshew type at this point, right? Like a bridge to a rookie on another team, or just like a fun backup.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about those guys, because they have some balls to like throw the ball into traffic and make plays and scramble around and do whatever. Sometimes they get it. They still get better by being around football more, understanding defenses better, and you'll get a Minshew who's suddenly maybe a top 15 quarterback in the league, or a guy like Rich Gannon, if you remember, he won MVP. He was a guy like that, and all of a sudden he won MVP in the right system. And so, I feel like there's those guys should be back, top backups. But so is Brissett. Brissett's another one of them. I mean, it's like, I don't think there's any real difference between those guys.
Weeks 1 through 10 in the NFL, first 2 months of the season, Sam Howell was QB3 in fantasy football lists.
Yeah, well, he took a lot of sacks, threw a lot of passes, and, slung it around a lot. But that, that's just fantasy.
Which is why people are tuning in as well, right?
No, I'm saying it's fine, but I'm saying when you're talking about which the team's going to replace a guy or not, that's,
Tommy DeVito, here's the easy joke. Ready? Tommy DeVito got whacked, right? I mean, that's kind of like the easy, low-hanging fruit joke. I mean, it was so obvious that Tyrod was he just looked better, looked more, which, again, shouldn't surprise anybody. I needed one more catch, one more reception from Barkley on that final drive, and to win like a $400 league, or to get into the finals of a $400 league. And because I lost by 1 point, I mean, that's fantasy football. So I was hoping Tyrod, I mean, I don't know, side venting right there. But anyway, Tommy DeVito, does he have a future in the NFL? I mean, Tyrod's obviously probably the 30th best quarterback in the league. So he'll either be a starter or a high-end backup next year.
DeVito might have a future as a backup. I mean, he certainly wasn't like QB1 where he just got in there and gotten destroyed. I mean, he's done okay under tough circumstances. But I don't know. He's marginal. He's a marginal backup, I think. Tyrod Taylor has gotten some of the worst deal besides being knifed. He's always just been considered a backup, but like he's always been pretty good when he plays. There was the Browns year where they took Mayfield with the number 1 pick, but they started Tyrod. Didn't that happen? And then they finally fired the coach and switched.
Right. I mean, you have to. You take a guy number 1 overall, and this was in the era.
But why would they even start Tyrod? It was just so stupid. But
the rookie's got to earn it. Rookies
right. But I mean, the number 1 guy's got to start. This is not 1998. Peyton Manning started, but like usually the guy would sit a whole year with these rookie contracts. Now, they used to get big money, so it didn't matter as much. But like Tyrod, he's good. I think he's good. I think he's like. I think if Tyrod, this is going to sound a little crazy, but if Tyrod were on the Eagles, like you'd be like, oh, this guy is one of these surprise quarterbacks. If you were on the Niners, like I think he's over the threshold. And
he'll be 35 when the season starts, which by the way is young man nowadays.
And he has no wear and tear because he hasn't played that much. So he's gotten hurt a ton, but he has no like just cumulative like workload wear and tear. So yeah, he'll be a backup for another couple of years. I mean, he's a guy that Geno didn't get started till he was in his 30s, really, for a career after he got punched in the face that time. That was really bad luck. Fitzpatrick was like Tyrod. He was like good. He never really got, his full-time gigs till he was in his late 30s either. So I don't know. He's not like a guy to worry about in fantasy, but
Geno Smith is only 16 months younger than Tyrod.
I know. I mean, he was supposed to start for the Jets, got punched in the face, and then Fitzpatrick took over and was that Fitz magic guy for a couple of games. Geno never got his job back. He's the guy, always going to be the guy who broke Eli's streak. And then suddenly in his 30s, he gets the start and he's decent. But again, Geno, just a guy, just like all these other ones.
Would you mind talking through one other player while I relieve myself? And that's not code for anything, because I have a bunch of stuff to ask you, and I won't last for another 25 minutes. So, but the queue up I want to do here.
Key to life is the untaken piss. The untaken piss.
Well, I should go Gatorade bottle underneath now, but I don't fit in that. I'm too wide.
It's okay. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Well, it depends what size bottle. But
the large bottle, the wide mouth bottle.
Yeah,
it gets stuck on there. It's the head.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had that problem.
Stuck in there. Yeah.
That's a problem. It's not everything is bigger isn't always better. There's a limit to that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the old Joe Rogan joke is that if penis enlargement pills actually worked, the first overdose would happen an hour 2.
Yeah, of course,
right. Like people would, would be carrying them on their
shoulders.
Real
man gets the reduction surgery. Real man has to have a reduction surgery.
All right,
just to reproduce, just in order to reproduce.
Getting a lot of questions about Zamir White. His teammates, they call him Zeus. I mean, the guy had 145 yards last week. Just talk about, and me, I go quickly. Where Zamir White would rank?
Is Josh Jacobs playing?
Let's assume not playing, because if he is playing, then this doesn't matter.
Right. All right. This is exactly the type of assignment that I totally reject. Like, I don't give a shit about this. I don't have Zamir White. I haven't looked up. That's why I didn't even know if Josh Jacobs was playing. So Alan is like, oh, go start ranking Zamir White. Not only am I not aware even who the Raiders are playing, I did look at it to make my prospective line pick, but I have no idea. And I have no idea what the workload split is. I don't even know how many catches he got. I was aware that he got a lot of rushing yards. But this is the kind of thing where, it's a ridiculous assignment for me to have. And I'm not going to rank Zamir White when I haven't even looked at rankings, don't make rankings. Right. I have no idea about this.
I just meant, is he startable?
If Josh Jacobs has been playing, of course he's startable. Who are they playing this week?
The Raiders, let me see. I'll look it up while we're talking here. But I just meant okay, let's say you have Austin Eckler, right? Who has just not been doing well. But Zamir White gets to start. So something like a name brand player versus Zamir White. I mean, you have to kind of detach yourself from those name brand guys that you drafted in the first round. That's really what this question's about.
Yeah, but of course, you just look at the facts, on the ground. How many targets is Eckler getting? How many carries? Doesn't matter that you drafted him with your first round pick
at Indy for Raiders.
Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that would be a player I'd feel fine with. If a guy's going to get 20 odd carries in a non-horrendous matchup, that's easy, right?
We had a Pacheco question here, and there's a reason I'm going to ask you about it. Right. Pacheco, man, this guy, not only does he run with reckless abandonment, but the guy gets his helmet knocked off and still keeps running, gets kneed in the head. I mean, this has almost been ridiculous at this point, where he just has no regard for his body there, Liss.
Yeah, Marion the Barbarian, remember him? May he rest in peace. Okay. That dude, Marion Barber for the Cowboys, used to just same thing. He would get the ball and he would just try to run everybody over. He wouldn't go out of bounds. If there were two guys hitting him at the sideline, he would lower shoulder and deliver a blow to the linebackers. Now, that's great for the individual linebacker that you smashed up. But remember, there's 11 of them and there's one of you, and they're only getting in on some of the hits. You're getting in on all of the hits, and you don't last long doing that. And that's how I felt about Pacheco from the beginning. He wasn't much of a pass catcher. They didn't use him in that. They throw to him occasionally, but he's mostly just a smash mouth running back, and he's not even that big. And it caught up to him. And, those guys are not long for the league. It's just not possible to be built in such a way to take that kind of punishment over the long haul.
Right. And, and that's how you do it. If you're an NFL team, you draft a guy in the 7th round or the day 3, you use him up, and then, let somebody else give him that second contract, and they end up usually like Miles Sanders. Not that Miles Sanders is a day 3 pick, but unproductive, so. Yeah,
and Miles Sanders the opposite. He's not that guy at all. He's more of the Robert Smith, run out of bounds when you can get a couple yards, more.
Good reference there. Good reference. Yeah. I just want last football question before I flip over to some other stuff that's going on in your world is MVP race. Brock Purdy was minus 200 on this podcast last week. He's now 19-1. I've never seen a fall like that before. It's the craziest thing. It's all on one game. It's almost like if this game happened 3 weeks ago, nobody would care, right?
Well, no, it wasn't just that. It was that this game, right. It was against Lamar, who then went way up. And 2, it was against the top team in the AFC, which basically cemented which the best team in the NFL is, right? So the quarterback on the best team in the NFL is the guy who wins. Purdy was very much that guy, circumstantially best team in the NFL. He's the quarterback. He could win MVP. Now they're not the best team, and he was bested by a team with another quarterback and also another team that there's nobody else on that team that could even credibly win it. So, you're not going to give it to who's that safety that had all the picks against Purdy? Hamilton. There's no guy on there's no Christian McCaffrey. There's no Tyreek Hill on the Ravens. So there's no one else to give it to. So if the Ravens are the top team in the league, it's probably just going to be Lamar, who's now the favorite. And that makes sense. I think there's a case if the Dolphins win in Baltimore, which I don't think they'll do, but they could, obviously. And they win like 20-19, and Tua has like 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they're both the Tyreek Hill, and he has like 12 catches for 200 or 190 yards and both the touchdowns, and they're like 6 touchdowns. I think Tyreek then may, if the Dolphins end up being the 1 seed, Tyreek could end up being the MVP in that case next week.
All right, here's your updated odds for anyone at time of recording here. Tyreek is plus 2,000 on DraftKings, so that's not bad. Brock Purdy plus 1,200. Going all the way up to the top, Lamar's minus 170. McCaffrey is actually number 2 at plus 400. And then Josh Allen looks like it's still a little bit of a value here at plus 1,300.
It really hurt that the Ravens won that game against the Niners, because the Ravens lose. The Bills could have, I think, gotten closer to the 1 seed or gotten a higher seed. But now the Ravens are sort of pulling away. And the only way that the Bills win the division is if Miami loses to the Ravens. Now there's a clear guy above Josh Allen. I think that's the problem. Had the Ravens lost that game and then beat Miami and the Bills won the division, now the Ravens are less than the Niners. So Lamar's not the supreme team. And then the Bills are ahead of Miami. So they're like one of the top teams. Now both those things can't happen because of that game. Now you can't have both Lamar not being on the best team and the Bills winning the division. Those two things can't simultaneously happen. And because of that, I think Josh Allen is pretty much out. I wouldn't bet him now.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So you would, if I gave you $100 and told you have to bet it, you would take the minus 170 odds, the bad odds?
No way. No, because
the Tyreek Hill ones.
I'd probably take Tyreek Hill, and then I would probably, it's not that if the Dolphins win, Tyreek wins, because Tua, is like a long shot, but if he wins, and it's obviously Tyreek more than Tua, I think that would be a pretty big case. And it's unfortunate that he missed that game. So he was going to break the yardage record, and that would have been a big case too. But if Tyreek goes for 200 and they beat him, if I had to put 100 down, I would put it on Tyreek though, just for the upside.
Yeah. Dak plus 2,000. Purdy.
Cowboys are so clearly, after losing to Miami and losing to
San Fran,
they're just so clearly not it.
All right. If you stuck with us this long, just want to let everybody know you can find all of Chris Liss's content over on realmansports.com or chrisliss.com. Or does it have to do all the dots?
No, just realmansports.com. I mean,
okay,
the chrisliss.com is just going to be for the non-sports stuff.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you want to see his non-sports, there's people that also like non-sports stuff. If you want to get a look behind RotoWire's paywall for free, fantasy baseball rankings are up. The rest of season basketball rankings, playoff football, rotowire.com/try. Put in your email. Paywall unlocks, rotowire.com /try. Any RotoWire listeners listening that are not familiar with Chris Liss, he was one of the co-founders of RotoWire, one of the 5 original partners, and now doing his own thing over at realmansports.com. For those of you who are familiar with Chris Liss, you're probably already on realmansports.com. All right. Let's anything else football thoughts here before we pivot off?
No, not really. Let's do this. I believe, I got a royal flush at the poker table, Alan. I can get off 220. I can get it. Nobody knows. I can get a 220 point week. I can win the prime. I should have last year, if I had just listened to you and started Daniel Jones, I would have got $7,000. That whole DeMar Hamlin game was so crazy because literally all the Bengals and Bills, all these key guys, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs got zeros. Right. That was crazy. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you never know. And that knocked out 30 people that would have easily, cashed. And you never know. You just want to be in range, get your team in, knock on wood. Kenny Walker's banged up. Saquon's a little banged up. If all my guys play, I believe I can get a 220 point week. No problem. I can win the whole thing. So I'm still in, I just want to be in it on week 17.
Fair enough. Actually, we got a good question in the chat, which I think will spark. I already know how you're going to answer this, but Ted says, would you split championship pot, 50-50, taking a chance of winning, or, if it's a all or nothing pot, if it's not like a 70-30 pot, would you go 50-50, or would you just say there's $1,000 in the pot and it's 1,000? I know it's also and let's say your projections are pretty close too. What would you do?
I mean, it depends on your financial situation, right?
Let's just say your financial situation.
I would not split it. No, I would go all in. I mean, look, here's the thing. Like, would you rather play for 500 instead of 1,000? Like, would you rather just have half the entry fee and just have a smaller stakes league? Or do you want your league to have 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it is? If you want the higher stakes league, don't split. If you actually don't like the stakes, then split. If you want it to be bigger, then do it. Now, if it's high enough, it was 10,000, I might let's take 2,000 each off the table and play for the 8 or something, because now you're talking about real money. It's a couple grand is nice, but for 1,000, I think I would play for the whole thing.
I'm in my highest stakes championship that I'm in, like standalone league, not NFFC or anything. There is 2,000 for the winner, 700 for second place. So I got the 700 banked, right? Mm-hmm. I asked the guy, I said, do you want to make it 1,700 and 1,000, right? Like change the thing. Right. He said no. So, cause he's the favorite, slight favorite. He's like, in the projections, he's like 55%, 58%. So I understand, but I always figure you got to ask, because like I said, I'm a little concerned about beating him. A lot of things would have to go right for me.
Well, I told you there's a tweet that I saw, the Circa contest, the quote, self-proclaimed best bettor in the world was offered a chop in the $9 million now Circa contest. And he declined.
Survivor or picks contest?
Survivor, I think.
Okay.
I think it was Survivor. Right. And he declined it, and then he got bounced. Okay. So he lost a lot of money on that. But if you're the best bettor in the world, then you'll win it back. And I said, I feel his pain because I did the same thing in 2000. I declined. I really thought I had the gift of prophecy. I had a monster year against the spread. And I thought, why would I split this evenly? I'm the best player. I should win. And of course I lost. So I feel his pain. It was only like 15 grand the pot or something there, 12 or something. It was between 12 and 15. And there was a tip we had to give the organizer. But, real man goes all in. But, for $9 million, I would have taken like $1 million off the table or whatever if it were there. But
yep. Last week, heading into the night game with San Francisco, there was a ticket posted. I don't know if it was real or not, but it was a credible account that posted it, and it was an anytime touchdown from one to. It was like
McCaffrey. It was McCaffrey needed to score, and he did.
You saw that? Was that? Yeah, he did. But would you have hedged that? It was $5 to win 490,000. You would have hedged 100 grand if you could, right? I know it's hard.
Yeah, the problem it's so hard to hedge, right? Like when Dalton and I were down to 23 teams, we're talking to like Rufus, right? Who like moves a lot of money in Vegas.
But this wasn't like an if-then, though. This was like, hey, you could hedge it right there and then with your DraftKings account.
Well, you got to get 100 grand in the account, right, to bet the no score, right?
Right.
How are you gonna move your bank and they just let you make a transfer of 100 grand?
You're right. You're right.
This is complex, right? And so I was thinking like, okay, so it was week 12. There are 23 people left. It's like, all right, well, we could have money lined the Lions against the Cardinals, right? Because we had the Cardinals and we got bounced. And they were 12 points. So it would have been like, 5-1 or something like that. So we could put like $5 grand on that, or something to get 25. Our equity was like 200 something thousand. And okay, but if we lose, now we're out, the $5 grand or whatever. And then let's say you lose, you stay alive the next week and it's not, as big of a spread. So now you're out now 15, 20, 30 grand. Now you're like already bleeding like 30 to 50 grand and there's still 8 people left and there's 2, and you're in this thing where I need to get the money. I got to hurry. Like, hey, can Rufus do this? Can we get this money to him in time? And, this is just not a headache you want, right? We bought him for 1,000. We're willing to lose the 1,000. You're having fun. And now you're creating stress and headache. Now, if it was a totally liquid market, like a stock market where you have your bank linked and you have plenty of liquidity and it's easy to move money in and out, okay, that would be different, right? Then you would just hedge and do the
this
math.
Was different. This thing was different. It was just one event, one time, one hit.
Right, but you still needed to be able to move in that 100K. I guess you could just say, okay, what's my max? I'm moving 10K.
Yeah, but let's say let's say you like it's a real sports book. Let's say you bet. I'm just going to hypothetically say it was MGM. You can call customer service on the phone and say, hey, or would you take? Okay,
is your bank going to let you move that money in like without like a big,
Would they give you a line of credit?
Yeah. Oh, a line of credit would be great. They probably charge you some interest on that, but
that's fine. You win automatically.
Right. You said, yeah, right. And it's only interest for like a couple of days. Yeah, I probably would have, right? For 400K, I probably would have hedged, and try to get at least like 40 or 50K out of it, just, right. And of course you would end up taking it back 350 instead of 400, but
who cares?
I don't think I mean, you care. I mean,
it's
the guy might not,
bet.
Well, I mean, that's still 50K is 50K, I mean, the guy got it all now, Alan, he got every bit.
Well, we don't know what he did. We don't know if he hedged or not.
That's right. But I'm saying, assuming he didn't, you got all of it. 50, yeah. Just because you won 400K tomorrow, you're going to just throw 50K in the garbage,
That's what we talked about with Russell Wilson. Just because you're a multi tens of millionaire doesn't mean you want to throw, any injury guarantees out the window. All right. What's going on this week on the Chris Liss podcast, which you just emailed out to everybody? I've listened to the first 10 or so minutes. What do you want to tease everyone about so they go listen to the Chris Liss podcast this week?
Yeah, I talked about a lot of stuff. It was a long one, and it was
really was a long one, a short one.
No, it wasn't a short one. It was a long one for real.
Give me the top two topics that might entice people.
So, okay, so it might entice people is different than the top two topics, but my top two topics were one is AI not having a problem from the map to the territory, and talking about how AI will beat you in chess. Because the map of chess, right? Like the sort of representation in your mind of what chess is, or the representation in bits, is the same thing as chess, right? Like the wood grain of the board doesn't matter. The reality of chess, like how the wood grain is, on your board, does not matter for the game. It's really just a conceptual game.
There's a AI set of rules. There's a hard.
It's literally just concepts, right? It's literally like a mental game. It's a model. The model of chess is chess, right? There's no difference, right? Whereas in human interaction, like NFL or stock market or whatever, the model of what's going on in markets and in reality and shipping and inventory is not remotely the same thing as the real thing. And that AI can only ever deal with the map, never the territory. And so a lot of midwits in sports betting and stuff, they use models of cards and poker and chess and apply it to sports. But that, just because it's really good with these things where the model and the territory, the map and territory are exactly the same, is not, there's an analogy to be made between the two, but it's not the reality. So that was one topic. The other topic is basically how the United States has been the most prosperous country and most powerful country since its inception. And it's because it has really good axioms, really good principles. I mean, they're eroded now. They're not respecting, rights, but the Bill of Rights, the freedom of speech, due process under law, you can't be arrested without due process and a trial and by jury and all this stuff. And Argentina, by the way, was richer per capita in the turn of the 19th century than America was, and had all the natural resources, giant country, and went to shit because it had bad rules. And how axioms in a complex system like a society, the fundamental axioms of how it's built are the most important thing. It's not about injections of money or having some resource, you find oil or whatever. It's not about that. It's about the rules. And then I was applying that to myself, as a person, the reason why all these hacks, do this for 10 days and lose weight or do that, it doesn't really matter because fundamentally your axioms are the same. It's do this and get a reward. And we're all sort of bribed from childhood. Eat this sugar, do this and you'll get the sugar treat, go do this and you'll get an ice cream. And so if we're
on those small dopamine hits.
So if your whole sort of system, your whole existence. And I found out this when I was fasting after day 4, I was like, where the hell is my reward? I did all my work. Where's my dinner? It's not that you're hungry. It's that you expect something that feels good. And so that if you're on the bribery system, which we all have, and we raise our kids, everybody, right? That's a bad axiom for actual fulfillment in life. And so, we're talking about the unscratched itch and all of that, the axiom of what's true. I'm really curious, what's going on internally, externally. What am I interested in as what is factually true? What is going on in this system, this football game? How can I observe truth without making the truth be something I like, believing what I want to believe, believing what makes me do better professionally and socially? This is a much better axiom for absolute transcendent success. You want an axiom that makes your peers, make you rewarded and belong more in society, then just believe whatever you're supposed to believe. Oh, the lab leak, it's a conspiracy theory. Okay, dude, you want to believe that and not get in trouble for saying, obviously COVID came from a lab, go ahead. But if you want a really fulfilling life, I think, like, what are the axioms? Are you on the bribery axiom? Whatever I'm incentivized to do, that's what I do and believe. Or are you on the axiom where it's like, I just want to know what's true. I just want to like dig into whatever this thing is. And so that's what the podcast is about.
Love it. And you actually talked a little bit about that on the 2 podcasts ago as well.
Yeah.
That made me think, because, after I have like a long week and then I do a couple, I referee high school basketball, the thing I'm most looking forward to is that cocktail. Because I'm now, I've taken some of your advice. My current wife, not the ex-wife, current wife also, cut out drinking. So I used to be a 3-time-a-weeker. Now I'm a 1-time-a-weeker and less drinks in that one time. I feel better, obviously. I mean, that's not but I still look forward to that reward. Now you made me feel bad about that, even that reward.
Well, feeling bad is not the issue. The issue with the reward with drinking is so interesting, because I'm sometimes like, maybe New Year's I'll have a bunch and, I'll have a drink or two. It's not that. It's not like, you have some discipline and you're not drinking. Like, that's not going to do it for you. What you do it is you realize, do I feel better from this drink, or do I just associate this drink with feeling better? And the association is the thing that I'm holding on to. But if I just let go of the association, like, this is bullshit, this is marketing, right? I've just been duped into thinking that this liquid makes me feel better, so that every time I'm like, my drink, it's like, no, it's not the alcohol. It's not the chemical feeling of being a little bit tired and like, whatever. It's just this idea in my head about this thing. Yeah. And once you realize that that's true, then the drink loses its power, and you're like, I'll have a kombucha or whatever. And you'll be like, I'm just drinking this thing, and it's exactly the same conversation I have with people. I was talking to this guy, he's like, you haven't been drinking as much. I'm like, yeah, not really. I'm like, I got the same conversation with you after 5 drinks as 0 drinks. It makes no difference to my experience. My association is this is fun, but then you realize the fun that you've had with people is based on the quality of conversation. It's never based on the alcohol. And if anything, the alcohol is a detraction. So it's never like, it's great if you have a problem to just stop drinking out of discipline and just get your conditions better around you. But it's never, I got to stop this, even though it's fun, even though I like this. It's more like, this is just fake. It's like if you're eating tofu and they told you it was steak, and you're like, the steak is so good. And you just thought the tofu was steak. And then one day they're like, dude, that's not steak. That's tofu. It's actually bad for you. And you'd be like, you wouldn't eat it ever again. Right. But it's like, as long as the association's there, you'll keep doing it.
It's the emperor's new clothes in a sense, right? Like you're telling, you're right. Cause I'm watching Boardwalk, or I just finished up watching Boardwalk Empire as a 3rd run through, and they're romanticizing whiskey. Like every interaction, hey, let me have a whiskey. And then I was like, man, I'm in the mood for whiskey. I drank. I was like, this is disgusting.
If you really just observe yourself when you drink, when you don't drink, when you're drinking something else, sparkling water, whatever, having a conversation, you will realize it's completely in your mind. I mean, alcohol has a physical effect, but that effect is not the thing that is really driving you to associate relaxation with it. It's really the idea of alcohol. And of course it's marketed well. I have the same thing with cigars, and I have one that someone gave me. I'll smoke it on New Year's, and that's it. I'll be done with that too.
Yeah, like I said, I still enjoy my 1 martini or my 1 vodka drink a week. But you know what? You also have to do things in steps, right? Like I said, 6, 7 years ago, I was a 7-day-a-week drinker, right? And then
a real man, is 14 days a week, and it's not, it's not majority counts. Morning is its own day, but it's not, again, like it's just like all of these things are just like, it's just awareness, right? So it's not like you're like, I need to be better. It's more like, this isn't true. Like, this is bullshit. And then there's no effort to stop it, because you're just like,
well, there's a feel better the next day, sleep better that night. And when I have to be sharp, like for example, like if I have to be on, I do that Sunday morning show on Sirius. I don't want to have a clouded head when I do a morning show from drinking the night before. When I referee a game, I feel a little less sharp and slow when I'm refereeing a game. So now I'm seeing not only my sleep get interrupted, but now my performance in areas which I want to be good at being hindered when I do that as well.
Yeah, it's good. You have a negative association with it, and then that is sort of counters it. But, the positive one is mostly fake. There is a neurological effect, but it's like so temporary, and that you pretty much have to keep boozing hard to keep it up. And then at some point, you're going to have the opposite effect, which is that basically this book I read, it's just true. But this guy says, like, the reason you feel relaxed is it depresses you. So it depresses your sort of and you're feeling. And so that what you do, because you have a tolerance to alcohol, because you're not drinking for the first time ever, is your body builds up this like extra sensitivity, which is why you can, after 5 drinks, socialize. If you never drank before you had 5 drinks, you'd be like a slurring mess. But you can do it because you get more sensitive. You step up with the sensitivity to counteract the alcohol. Once the alcohol wears off, that sensitivity is really uncomfortable. It's called a hangover. Light, noise, you're irritable. And so you're basically just creating that sense of anxiety and sensitivity, but pushing it down the road a little bit.
Yeah, punting it, right. Okay. All right. That's all fair. Any New Year's Eve plans?
I think we're having some people over. We're not going to have the rager we had during our Christmas party a couple of weeks ago, but just like a mellow, few people. Probably cook some food, maybe get some oysters, that's it.
Yeah, we're gonna go low key. Friday night, I'm going to Knicks Orlando. A friend of Knicks versus Magic, going to the game in Orlando. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. A friend of mine invited me. Floor seats. How do you like that one?
That's great. We got Cole Anthony going. Sasha and I, we're doing well still in the NBA league. So Cole Anthony on our bench. I mean, he's a bench guy for them, but he's like the 6th man, and he's been doing all right for us.
Yeah, and I heard Kenny Smith talk. 'Cause again, I'm not as big a basketball fan as I used to be. I still love the Knicks. I still like especially when they're good or they're competitive. And I heard Kenny Smith say this. I think he goes, the Knicks will always be stuck in the middle because they never have the best player on the floor. It's always like they're going against Giannis, or they're going against Kevin Durant, or they're going against Paolo Banchero on against Orlando. So, but basketball is still one of those sports that I still think is better in person, whereas like football, for example, for me is better on TV.
So I went to a Clippers game like 10 years ago and it was horrible. They're like the jock jams and the stupid people doing flips in between. It's too many like breaks and too much bullshit in the arena. They should dim the lights and have you hear the squeak of the sneakers on the court and the thud of the basketball.
One further, they should mic the players.
Yeah, and make it so that it's dark except for the court, and just be about basketball. It's this sideshow for all these non-fans, and it's like it's just like last week I talked about the pussification of everything. It's like the stupidification of everything. It's like, just make it about basketball. Basketball is a great game. By the way, I'm really enjoying fantasy basketball, the NFBKC. I was like annoyed that there were twice weekly, but it's so much better because you hate to have that like 2 games of Steph Curry versus 5 games of some scrub. And you're like, this way, like it's just on the weekends and you basically leave in your good players all the time. And it's totally tolerable, the amount of work it takes. It's like baseball is like intolerable. I'm still going to outsource, but basketball is like, at least so far, it's been extremely enjoyable and we're doing really well so far.
And it's a nice bonding thing you have going with your daughter. So yeah,
although she almost does none of it now that the draft's over. I mean, because the games are on so late here, and I have to make all the lineup decisions. But yeah, it's still
this is the get your kid not you, but the proverbial your kid nags you for a dog. You get the dog, they play with it for the first week, and then dad walks it.
She's still into it. We watch the game. We'll cheer on. It's awesome watching your players get rebounds and assists and stuff. Yeah. So it's good.
All right, everybody. Follow Chris Liss over on Noster. And also, you can find all of his content on chrisliss.com or realmansports.com. RotoWire, you want to get behind RotoWire's paywall, rotowire.com/try, free look there. And if you've stayed with us, I see we have a bunch of people still in here. If you don't mind hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel. Liz, we're going to keep this going through the Super Bowl, this podcast. Are you good with that?
Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, do it year round. I got a place to put it. It's good.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know baseball, so we could
learn it. You got to learn it, man. Start setting up, Baseball's big.
All right. Well, we'll get there, but I just want to let everybody know, just give everyone a little security blanket who has been hanging out with us for the whole year. We're going to keep this going at minimum through the Super Bowl, and then maybe a recap show after the Super Bowl. So I'm going to, you said no homework, but for our Super Bowl show where we have 2 weeks in between, I am going to ask you to come up with 5 or 6 props that you like. I am going to do that.
We'll see. No. If I bet them myself, I'll give them.
Yes.
That's my only thing. I left the money that I won in that stupid online sports guy. I won like $400 from the best like second quarter showing on my picks, because I will be making Super Bowl bets and playoff bets. So,
all right. Well, then I'll come up with some props and you'll grade them that, hey, I would make that bet. Hey, I would.
Just the odds are so shitty. Like they rip you off so much. If you had like a sharp book that really like just took a small rake off the odds, I'd do a lot of bets. It's just like the book that I have, it's like the rake is like 50%, So
they opened up the Hard Rock legal sports betting in Florida now, so it's run by the Seminole tribes, and it's great. The Hard Rock app is good. The odds, like you said, are a little shaky, but at least it's like legal. It's here. It's great. It's What we learned in our RotoWire trip is that the Seminole tribe, Liss, and I think this is kind of interesting, they are the only Native American tribe that never surrendered to U.S. power, so they are sovereign.
Oh, okay.
And they've never surrendered.
Yeah. Okay. Good
for
them.
Real tribe.
Real tribe. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they call the shots with the sports betting on Hard Rock. Well, Hard Rock is just the software they use. They're the ones behind the whole Florida sports betting. Seminole tribe in Florida.
All right. Nice. Very nice.
All right. Good place to end it. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week with another collaboration podcast between Real Man Sports and RotoWire.